Alright, hi, this is Will, and I'm going to document where we stood at the end of the semester with how we did with the HMI and also with the code for the PLC. We had a student, Tom Bands, who did a lot of work with both the PLC coding and the Wonderware, and it came out pretty good, and so I just want to show where we ended up with that. Now, I've got my webcam over here, maybe I'll move it over here so we can take a look at what's going on here. This is the Mark II control panel, and it's the regular control panel, and it has 3 additional switches over here, and these are just LEDs that mimic where the switch is at. Now if we look over here, you can see that same control panel, and the top switch is for manual, and in manual operation we can control the linear actuator by the start and the reset push buttons. So start, I believe, gets it going towards the sorter, reset has it going back towards the dispenser, and stop just stops it. Now we have continuous operation, and initially when we were doing the PLC coding, we would process one cup, and when that cup was finished we'd stop, and then we'd have to use reset and start to go through the whole process again. When we're in continuous mode, we just keep running as long as we have cups in the cup dispenser or the magazine, and we'll keep running. Now the bottom switch is for, we can operate the code, and one of the things that Tom had done was consolidate the code, so we have one sequencer that will run the whole program off of one sequencer for one sensor operation, which is the sensor right at the cup dispenser, or we can switch it into 4 sensor operation, and we use the inductive sensor at each module, and that consolidates it in either format, either single sensor or 4 sensor. Originally we had 3 sequencers. One was to drive the cup to the hopper, and then after we determined the cup, we had a sequencer for a black cup and a sequencer for a white cup. That's all been combined into one sequencer for the 1 sensor and another sequencer for the 4 sensor operation. So we'll take a look at that, and this will probably be 2 videos. This is part 1, and we'll concentrate mostly on the HMI with the Wonderware. And the second one will be taking a look at the PLC code. And one of the things that we have in here, and it's a pretty good idea if you, when you use Wonderware, and we're in the edit mode right now, but when we go into the run mode, and I'll just put it in run mode, it wants to hog the whole screen over here. And it kind of makes it difficult to look at both the PLC code and the Wonderware at the same time. So if you can, it's a good idea when you're doing this, and I'll just move my webcam over here. We have 2 monitors, dual monitor setup. One of them is just strictly for the PLC code. We can take a look at that. And the other monitor that we're looking at and we're recording off of is the Wonderware itself. So that's what we're doing. Now over here, and I'm going to move my webcam so we can see what's going on. When the switch is in the right hand position, that means the function is on. So right now we are in manual mode. And that's by virtue of this switch over here. It doesn't really matter if I take this switch and move it out of manual mode. You can see the light goes out, and then we can switch it back on and off by this switch. And you can see when we get into manual mode, it tells us the system's in manual mode. Start drives it to the right towards the sorter end. Reset drives it to the left towards the cup dispenser. So what we're going to do is, right now we are kind of in the middle here, so I'm going to start, and we're going to move towards the right. So if I do that, we're moving, and you can see the visualization of the cup carriage. Now to stop it, I just hit the stop push button. Reset will drive it back towards the left, and you can see the visualization here of the cup carriage. And one of the things when you put in all these visualizations for the Wonderware is it takes kind of a lot of code, extra code to do this. We have to have a timer that counts fairly quickly, and then a counter that actually counts how the movement of the carriage is. And when you operate, you can see it's not quite smooth analog, but it moves fairly nicely, and we kind of like that. So I'm going to stop it here, and we'll take it out of manual mode here. And you can see that right now it happens to be hovered right over that lamp. You know, it's not exactly accurate. And the thing about the visualization is you can do pretty good and get 90–95% of the way there. That last 5% to make it look really ideal is a lot of work. Takes a lot of time. But that's what we have in manual mode. So we'll take it out of manual mode and we can put it into continuous operation. Now here is when we're going through our normal start sequence. Now the way Tom coded it, and I'm going to move it just a little bit so we can kind of look at the control panel and my stack light at the same time, is when we go into the operational mode, and that's what we're in, when I hit the green reset button, the stack light goes through a sequence, a 3-second lamp test, and that'll just test make sure that that's all working. Now we're kind of in the idle condition, and now when I hit the start button again, it'll go through the normal blink for the warm-up before the system becomes operational. And when it is finished with the blink, it will turn on green, and now we can watch it operate. And now I'll kind of just move towards our linear actuator and take a view at that. Now it's moving towards the home. There's a black cup. And now the visualization, it just shows a gray cup. That is not intended to be a black cup. It's kind of gray as unknown. And right here when it gets to the hopper is where it identifies the color. It identifies it as black, and the black is in the final sorting slot. So it'll push it in there, and now we've got our final cup. Now on the way back it's empty, and our next cup is going to be white. So again, when we dispense it out here, it's going to show a white cup. Well, it'll show a gray cup initially until it gets to the hopper. And you can see that the lights work over here give you some indication of about where it's at in the cycle. And right here it'll turn white. And now when we push it onto the thing, onto the slot, we'll show full cup here. And that's kind of what we got going for the visualization. And again, right now we're going to put a black cup on here, so it'll be gray. And we have these to indicate where it is with our inductive sensors. So you can kind of see it. So it's at the hopper. Now it turns black, and it's going to park that in the far slot again. And now we've got 2 cups. And so I think right now I'm going to just, well, we got one more white cup. We'll take a look at a white cup, and then let's see what we've got. Well, we'll watch this white cup and then we'll stop it, and I'll put it into the single sensor, 4 sensor operation. Well, we don't really need to see that. I'll show a couple other things that we have just for, and there's the second cup in the slot. And I am going to stop it just so I can run it here for a second and show you some of the other things that we have in here. Let me move my webcam, which is always in the way, out of the way. We have some functions that we can test things on. And we can test, you know, if we're in this off condition, we can test for the red light coming on. And these are just check boxes. So we can do this for all our lights. And it does a little functional testing. It's not too terribly much. We can take a look at the inductive sensors. If I press on one, the first point lights up. Now the carriage actually moved back. But the second light, and it just blinks really quick. You have to click on it and look. But it's something that gives us a little indication. It doesn't do too terribly much for us, but we can also take a look at some of our faults. If we have a warning that the dispenser's empty, and that one doesn't want to seem to work, but there's the candy's empty and the storage is full. And we can also take a look at some of these dispensers, and this will just show the it simulates and it just makes sure that the Wonderware is working correctly. The actual arm is not moving. This is just a simulation of it. Here for the motor, we just showed this spinning. And when we do this, this is actually two separate pictures of the auger that are 180 degrees apart. So the way it's visualized is you're actually flipping between two different pictures of the same auger. And one is visible at one time and the other one is visible when the first one isn't. So it gives an appearance of that it's actually spinning. And that's kind of a clever setup that was put on there. And here's the storage arm. It's just going to push it into place. And I'm going to start it one more time. Now we're not physically located here. It just happened to go back there when I pressed the number 1 position. But we have one more white cup in here, and we're going to fill that up. So our slot will be full when we put that third white cup in here. So I think what we have to do, because I stopped it, is I'm going to have to go back in to reset it. And you know, these buttons here have the same functionality as when I press the buttons over here on my control panel. So these have the same functionality as these guys over here. So when I'll go back here so we can look at our stack light. When I press the start here, we're going into our lamp test. And that's all our lights are on. And one thing that you'll notice is because the Wonderware is software, there is a little lag between what happens, and especially when it's blinking, you'll be able to notice this, what happens with the hardware versus what happens with the Wonderware software. So when I hit start again, it'll do its blink, and here's the hardware, and the software will have a little lag in between it. So you can see that there is that lag, and when you're looking at them both, it's a little bothersome, but that's all right. It's just something that we have to live with, but that's the way software is. It's always slower than hardware. So we have our last white cup in here, and we're going down in gray. Again, once it identifies it, it'll be able to turn it on as a white cup. And now, when we push it in there, and I'm going to stop the system, because we have the white slot is full. Please empty all cups and hit the reset push button. So I'm going to grab some of these cups, and the way it's set up now, you can set it up for however you want. What we have is when either slot is full, we say, okay, empty those slots, empty both of them, and when we hit the reset button, it's actually going to clear both of the cups. So when I do hit the reset, it is going to get rid of all of our cups in the display, and we're going to start anew. And that's kind of what we have going for the Wonderware. Now, when we made this, you know, what we do, like for instance with the auger, I was saying that it's really two pictures that are kind of 180 degrees apart, and it gives the appearance of you know, movement. But basically what you see for the auger, it's just a photo, actual picture of the auger, and then it's cropped out, and it takes a lot of time. The carriage here is an actual picture of the Wonderware, and this is kind of some of it's kind of our SolidWorks drawings that, you know, we just crop and then put back together to make you know, this visualization. And again, you know, it's a lot of work to get going, and it's a lot of work to get to that final thing to make everything look exactly right, but it works out pretty well. I like the Wonderware stuff. And again, we use Wonderware with the Click PLC. We can also use it with our Allen Bradley. We can use it with our Siemens. So it's really flexible. If you know anything about PLC HMIs, they're custom per each vendor. They're very expensive. If you have an educational program with Wonderware, when it's actually InduSoft is the company's name, they'll set you up with you know, free software for students or educational program, and it's a very good deal. We love it. So that's kind of, I think that's pretty much all I want to show here. You know, we have everything going on from here, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to cut off this video here because this is getting kind of long, and I'm going to take the next video and kind of just show what's happening with our PLC code. The PLC code was really nicely done and consolidated, but the one thing we didn't get to is it would have been nice to have everything more in routines. So there would be a routine for, you know, the turn on sequence. Then there would be a separate routine if you're in single mode operation, and a separate routine if you're in 4-sensor operation. And again, the Wonderware adds a lot of code, so it is a pretty lengthy code when we look at it, and you'll see that. But if it was kind of subdivided into subroutines, it might work out a little bit better. Anyway, that's what we have for the Wonderware, and in the next video we're going to take a look at the final PLC codes.